In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. John, verses 1 through 5, the Word of God. I was going to talk about a bunch of science news, but I'm just going to skip all that and just go to a solution. I think I have a solution, and it's sort of a common sense solution, but it's not so common anymore. We need to teach the Bible in schools. This is obvious to me. It should be obvious to everyone that knows anything about history whatsoever. Whether or not you're a Christian, you should want the Bible to be taught in schools. The Bible is the intellectual, philosophical underpinning of all of Western civilization, aka Christendom. It is the most important anthology of texts ever put together, without a doubt. The fact that we don't teach it in schools from cover to cover is a shame, a crime against our ancestors, a denigration of the human spirit to the degree that I cannot even fathom what has been going through our forefathers' minds as they have created a system that would allow government-mandated public education that does not include the Bible as its intellectual underpinning. The fact that there are people, adults in this country who vote that have not read this book is offensive to me, and should be offensive to every American. This shouldn't even be a controversial statement. The fact that it's controversial really speaks to how far we have fallen, how corrupt and insidious the ideas that have crept into the culture are. Consider this. In 1776, when this country was declared independence, well, not declared independence, we declared independence as 1774. But when we won the war, when we became our own country, and when we started drafting documents, nearly everybody was a Christian. And everybody that mattered definitely was a Christian, maybe a deist, but that's still at least theist, right? Like monotheist was the default mode of thought, mode of conception of the universe at that point. And frankly, it was overwhelmingly sort of, maybe not Orthodox Christian, but at least mainline Protestant Christian thinking that was going on at the time. Everybody believed in God. Okay, fear of God was considered a virtue, was considered wisdom. And it is considered wisdom by wise people today. And guess what? These things are objective. So whether or not you like it is really irrelevant. And so when the country was founded, Christianity was the default mode of thinking. It should have been the default mode of thinking today. But again, the ideas, the secular atheist ideas that have crept into the culture are so bad, and viral and creeping the way that they have taken over. It's become a default assumption about the universe. The idea that the secular realm is neutral is a false idea that has crept into the culture. Secularity is not neutral. So, I think that's right. Secularity, is that right? I think that's right. Is not neutral. It is ungodly. It moves away from a way of viewing the universe which has a fundamentally moral underpinning. The idea that at the source of all things is a creator who looks on and judges. The idea that man is subject to objective right and wrong set by an objective lawgiver. It's hard to even know. There's not a single thing. It's Satan acting on people to slowly creep this secular notion into the culture to the point where they wouldn't air when we landed on the moon, Buzz Aldrin couldn't pray back to base control because people couldn't hear it on the news. When I suggest we teach the Bible in schools as a solution to school violence, I'm told that morality has no place in education. But if morality has no place in education, then why have education to begin with? Isn't education a moral imperative? Isn't the idea of education a moral imperative? So how could you even begin to separate morality from education? There is no such thing. And you can say, we'll only teach scientific concepts and scientific notions and empirically provable things. But if you only taught empirically provable things without any value judgments, how would you know which empirical things to teach? It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame that in my junior year, I want to say, no, I was a sophomore, AP Bio. I was a sophomore with Mrs. Purcell, and in my AP Bio class, Miss Purcell taught us about Lamarckian and Darwinian evolution. Both. We don't even consider Lamarckian evolution today. No one remembers who Jean Lamarck was. But we learned them both anyway. But we didn't learn a creationist side, a perspective on it. And furthermore, we shouldn't even have to learn the creationist side. Like, that should have just been a part of our classical education from the beginning. Like, you should be taught the Bible from a young age. You should understand these fundamental ideas that underpin our civilization. These aren't individual concepts. These are universal concepts. They're things that should be taught to all people. Even if for no other reason than their historical importance, right? Even if you don't believe it, if you don't teach it from a theological perspective, it's so historically important. First of all, look at the Jewish people, the most successful minority group of all time. Why? Because they have an operating system written by God in the form of the Old Testament. And the New Testament, obviously, is the basis of Western civilization, the basis of Christendom from Rome west. That is Christendom. That is where Christ's worldly domain exploded 2,000 years ago. And, I mean, not from Rome west, but really from Jerusalem west. And, I mean, even east of there. Christianity is the most important good social force the planet has ever known, but we don't talk about it in those terms. Even though, if you were to do an analysis of all of the scientific contributions, all of the charitable contributions, all of the corporate capitalist contributions to the world and science, it would be overwhelmingly Christian. The weights would be overwhelmingly out of Christianity if you were just to do an empirical analysis of the subject, even though that is the case, and we all know it to be the case, because at minimum, just from the United States alone, founded by George Washington and his the other founding fathers, George Washington, who was baptized in the Hudson River by John Gunnow, by the way, primitive Baptist, allegedly, right? That's like a legend. But the point is that the fact that we don't teach the Bible in schools just on its historical merits is preposterous. It's ridiculous that we don't teach it. So I wrote notes for the show today. There was researchers at Penn State made a new material for toilet bowls to make them flush 50% more efficiently, right? I could have talked about that. There was a paper about the Hubble constant that I thought was sort of interesting. I didn't really understand it well enough, and I couldn't get excited about something I didn't understand super well. But I'm going to try to get Adam Rees. If anyone knows Adam Rees from Johns Hopkins University, he's an astronomer. Please just let me know, because I want to talk to him about the Hubble constant and universal expansion. I was going to talk about these things on the show today, but I just want to hammer actually this one topic, because I think that it would solve a lot of problems. The fact that, we have school violence to such a degree, it's not, again, guns don't cause people to shoot other people, okay? People who don't think highly of the human condition kill other people, okay? The root cause is human agony, human suffering, human sinfulness, human fallenness, Satan working in people. And if you don't have a metaphysical underpinning, a spiritual underpinning, people unmoored go rogue and commit heinous acts and terrible atrocities. So I really think that the public education system should have a moral underpinning. It should have an intellectual underpinning based on our shared Christian values. And if you don't share in those Christian values, you should homeschool your kids, okay? Because the public education system, the American values that have led to us having a public education system are fundamentally Christian values, okay? That kind of charity that you're going to take, I probably pay an effective tax rate of nearly 50%. The fact you're going to take nearly half of my money and put it toward education and all these things that are not the securing of my human rights, you should do this in accord with the charitable spirit that is the foundation of the nation. And that's all I've got for you today. Go out, get on board with the biblical schooling movement, wherever that is. I'll find someone who is doing work in this cause of teaching the Bible in schools, and I'll put them, I'll put them in the notes. The show notes. And this is the show today, okay? This is Liberty and Justice, episode 2. I'm going to try to do it every day. It's really hard to do like a multiple issue show because normally I only have so much time to do research. I've got a real job. So I'm Justus Epen. This has been Liberty and Justice. Thank you for joining me, and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, week, whenever you're watching this.